Hello friends, this is Ralph and welcome back to the channel where you learn everything about the ARP 2600 and the Behringer 2600. In today's video, I'm going to explain everything about the ADSR and AR envelope sections, and I will shed some light on the various gate and trigger options, so stay tuned. There's quite a bit of mystery surrounding the envelope section on the Behringer 2600, especially because of all the different ways you can send a gate and or a trigger to the ADSR and the AR. I will start by giving you a basic explanation of the ADSR and the AR envelopes. Then we will connect a MIDI controller and look at how the gate and trigger signals actually behave. We will talk about the exponential versus linear behavior of the envelopes when controlling the VCA. I will also show you how the envelopes work without MIDI, just by using an external CV gate controller instead. Finally, we will trigger the ADSR and AR completely independently from each other and use this setup to create a two-voice patch on the Behringer 2600. We have got a lot to cover, so let's jump right in. Alright, now I'm telling you what the ADSR and the AR are doing in a nutshell. So, the ADSR and the AR are shaping a gate signal which is usually sent from a keyboard when pressing a key. In most scenarios, the ADSR and the AR control the frequency of the filter, the VCF, and the amplitude of the VCA, the voltage-controlled amplifier. You can also send the output of the ADSR and the AR to other modules, for instance, to the voltage-controlled oscillators, what I'm going to show you later. So, before we go ahead, I want to tell you what ADSR stands for. ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, release. Attack is how fast the sound starts. Decay is how fast it fades right after. Sustain is how long it holds steady when pressing Now let me tell you what ADSR stands for. ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, release. Attack is how fast the sound starts. Decay is how fast it fades right after. Sustain is how long it holds steady when you keep pressing the key, and release is how long it lingers after you let go. The AR is a bit simpler. It only has attack and release, and it has a constant sustain which holds for as long as you keep on pressing down the key. Alright, and now let me show you what the ADSR is doing to the pitch of an oscillator. For this, we just use oscillator number 3 here. I brought up the slider in the audio mixer section of the filter. And we already have a pre-wired ADSR control for oscillator number 3. So I bring up this slider, the ADSR slider, in VCO number 3, and you can hear what the ADSR is doing to the pitch of the VCO number 3. Let me open the filter a bit more. Okay, and now we are going to use the AR. Since there is no pre-wired connection, we have to use a patch cable. So we take the AR output here, plug it into the slot, and now we go to the ADSR input slot of oscillator number 3. We plug it in. And now we are overriding the pre-wired connection, the ADSR connection, and replace it with the AR. So when I press down a key now, you hear how the AR now is controlling the pitch of the oscillator. So we can also bring in the other oscillators. So you have the AR just affecting the pitch of oscillator number 3, and the other VCOs are not being affected. With this, you can create some interesting portamento effects. Well, and this is the ADSR and AR in a nutshell. Now let's really dig in. So we are looking here at the Behringer 2600 Gray Mini, and here we have the Arturia KeyStep keyboard controller. I have connected the KeyStep to the 2600 via MIDI, and that's like connecting the original ARP 2600 keyboard to the original ARP 2600 synthesizer. Of course, the original ARP 2600 synth doesn't have MIDI, it has a proprietary connector. But once you have connected the keyboard, it's the same behavior like connecting the Arturia KeyStep keyboard controller to the Behringer 2600 via MIDI. And that means when you press a key on the keyboard, you send a CV pitch signal to all 3 oscillators, and then also a gate and trigger signal to both envelopes, the ADSR and the AR. In order to do that, the position of this switch here needs to be in the upper position. I come back later to that switch further down in this video. Now, before we go ahead, I want to explain you this basic simple patch and how the signal flows. As I pointed out already, I have connected the KeyStep to the Behringer 2600 via MIDI, and that's sending a pitch signal to all 3 oscillators internally, and also a gate and trigger signal to both envelopes. So for this, I have brought up all 3 oscillators here in the audio section of the filter, the VCF. Then here I have brought up this slider. The ADSR is controlling the filter frequency. Then here in the VCA, I brought up the VCF slider in the volume section, the audio section. And then here in the control section, the AR is controlling the amplitude of the VCA. And then here in the final mixer, I brought up the VCA output. Okay, then when I press a key on the keyboard, you can hear how both envelopes are being triggered. So before we go ahead, I want to talk about these 2 outputs here. A gate out and a trigger out are being sent internally to these 2 envelopes when I press a key on the keyboard. You can also trigger the envelopes with this manual button here. But then there is no pitch signal. it just uses the latest pitch. So this is just triggering the envelopes. And here on the keyboard, it's triggering the envelopes and also sending a pitch to the oscillators. You can output also the gate out and the trigger out, which are being initiated when you press a key on the keyboard. According to the Behringer 2600 user manual, the trigger out is 14 volt and the gate out is 10 volt. I have created a video, a tutorial, in which I'm showing you how to use the Behringer 2600 as a MIDI to CV gate interface. If you are interested in that topic, then kindly check out the tutorial. I put the link to that video into the video description box below. Now, let me give you some basic information about gate and trigger. So, when you press a key on the keyboard or press this button here, you have a gate. So, a gate is a spike at the beginning, then a plateau for as long as the key is pressed, and when you release the key, whoop, the gate is off. So the trigger out, the trigger signal, is just the spike at the beginning, just a spike. Okay, I want you to have a listen to the gate signal and the trigger out signal. By the way, Behringer's user manual says that this trigger out has a voltage of 14 volt and the gate out of 10 volt. I haven't measured it, I'm just telling you what's standing in the manual. Okay, so I take now the trigger out, and before we go ahead, I take out all the oscillators. Then I plug the trigger out signal here into the ring modulator slot. I bring up this volume slider, and now I open the filter all the way up and also bring up initial gain. And now let's have a listen when I press a key on the keyboard. You can hear this trigger signal, this short click. So let's do the same with the gate out. So that's the gate now. Bring up the volume again, and now listen. You can hear that there is a slight difference. With the gate, you have the spike at the beginning, then the voltage plateau, and then when you release the key, the voltage is off, and there you have sort of another click. Okay, anyway, so I unplug this here now, and then I close the filter, bring down initial gain, and bring up all the 3 oscillators. So when I press a key on the keyboard, we now have the original patch. The keyboard is triggering now the envelopes, both the AR and the ADSR, when this switch here is in the upper position. And when it's in the upper position, the keyboard or this manual button are triggering the envelopes. So let's focus now on the AR first. So let me get a cable here. So at the moment we have the ADSR controlling the filter frequency. We now also want the AR to control the filter frequency and the VCA amplitude. Here the amplitude of the VCA. It's already pre-wired. That's this slider here. I brought it all the way up. And now we take the AR output and plug this cable into the ADSR input slot of the control section of the filter. And now the AR is controlling both the filter frequency and the VCA amplitude. So we have here the time factor switch, and the time factor switch sets the overall length of the envelopes. You have 3 basic time durations. Here the down position is the shortest, then the middle position a little bit longer, and here the longest, the upper position. The same switch you have here in the ADSR section. So let me bring it back here into the middle position. Alright, so the default setting, the pre-wire behavior is that the ADSR is now controlling the frequency of the filter. And the AR is controlling the amplitude of the VCA. Okay, now we also want the ADSR to control the amplitude of the VCA. So we also have a pre-wired connection here. So when I take down the AR, I bring up the ADSR slider, the pre-wired connection, to the middle, nothing is happening. I have to bring it up all the way. Then I hear something. But it's very short. I have to go to the longest time factor. Anyway, why is that behavior? Why is it so short? Here, the pre-wired connection, this input slot, has an exponential curve, and this one here, the AR connection, has a linear curve. So if we want the ADSR to behave in a linear way, then we have to take the ADSR output here and plug it into the AR input. And now you can hear we have a linear behavior to it. Okay, let me unplug this. And now we have the original default wiring, the AR controlling the amplitude of the VCA. Okay, now I want to point out something else. We have here a gate input. This gate input is not available on the original ARP 2600. Okay, when I now plug a cable into this gate input, let's hear what is happening. So okay, you can hear now how the ADSR is controlling the filter frequency. When I plug a cable into the gate input, the connection from the ADSR to the filter is broken. So that means when a cable is plugged into this gate input, then only the AR is being triggered. So I open the filter. And you can hear how only the AR is active. When I'm doing anything here on the ADSR, nothing is happening to the filter frequency. I will come back to this point later in the video, but I just want to point it out now. So let me unplug this. And now we have the normal behavior again, the pre-wired connection. Okay, so at the moment we have connected the Arturia key step to the Behringer 2600 via MIDI. This switch here is in the upper position, and that means that the keyboard or this button here are triggering the envelopes. So when we bring this switch downward, then we have the sample and hold clock triggering both envelopes. Okay. We bring it up again, and then it stops. Okay, so now I want to show you how the synthesizer, the Behringer 2600 synthesizer, behaves when we are not attaching a MIDI keyboard to the synthesizer, but we are using a CV gate instead. For this, I'm unplugging the MIDI cable. I will be back in a second. So, as you now can see, I have disconnected the MIDI cable, and I'm sending here a pitch out from the Arturia key step to the keyboard CV input of just oscillator number 2. For the purpose of this video, we just need to work with oscillator number 2. And then I have less cables flying around here on the top of the synthesizer. Then we have the gate output of the Arturia key step and send it here to the sample and hold input slot here on the Behringer 2600. Please note that this switch is still in the upper position. So, here we go. Let me tell you something about the sample and hold input slot. According to the Behringer user manual for the Behringer 2600, this input slot has a threshold of 6 volt. On the Arturia key step, I'm using a V trigger of 12 volt. For me, that's the best way. I'm using the Arturia key step with various synthesizers, and for me, the 12 volt setting is working across all my synthesizers. I'm using the key step also with my original ARP2600 and some Eurorec modules. Okay, then now when I press a key on the keyboard, nothing is happening because we do not have a MIDI connection. Yeah? So when I bring this switch downward now, then you can hear that the gate signal from the Arturia key step is triggering the envelopes. And the pitch out is controlling the pitch here of oscillator number 2. Okay, so let's move on. I bring this switch up again, and now I want to use here the gate input to trigger the envelopes. Let's do this. I plug this cable which carries the gate signal from the Arturia key step. I plug it here into this gate input slot. And now I press a key on the keyboard. Yeah. The envelopes don't seem to be really triggered. And that's because if you go this route, the Behringer 2600 needs both a trigger and a gate signal. This behavior is similar to the original ARP 2600. In order to do that, I now take this cable which carries the gate signal from the Arturia key step and plug it here into the multiple row. And now I take another cable, plug it into the multiple row, and plug it here into the gate input. Yeah. So this is just the gate signal going through the multiple row. Okay. Then I take another cable, plug it into the multiple row, and plug this gate signal also into the trigger input. And now I press a key. You can hear that the envelopes seem to be triggered normally. As I told you earlier, a gate signal also includes a trigger signal. And that's why we can use the gate signal for the gate and for the trigger. Why this behavior is as it is, I can't really tell you. It's also the same on the original ARP 2600. So if you want to go this route, you have to use the gate and the trigger input simultaneously and sending a gate to it. Okay, and now we come back to this gate input slot here, which I have mentioned earlier. Once again, I want to point out that this input slot is not available on the original ARP 2600. So when I now take this gate and plug it here into the gate input, I press a key on the keyboard, nothing seems to be happening because the AR envelope, which is controlling the amplitude of the VCA, seems to be disabled. It's not being triggered. So for this, I have to bring up the ADSR in the control section of the VCA. And now you hear it, that the ADSR is controlling the filter and the VCA. But here we have this exponential curve behavior again, which I have mentioned earlier. So in order to rectify this, we take here the output of the ADSR and plug it into the AR slot, which has a linear behavior. Okay, and now you can hear that the ADSR is being triggered normally. So when I now unplug the trigger input, we have the same problem again. If we go the route via these input slots, we have to also send a trigger signal. Now we can use the AR envelope generator for something else. And I'm showing you now how we are going to use the AR envelope generator together with the ring modulator and VCO number 3 to set up a second voice here on the Behringer 2600. So for this independent second voice, we are going to use the Arturia microbrute, just the pitch CV and the gate signal. We are not going to use any audio signal from the Arturia microbrute, just the pitch CV and the gate. So this violet cable here carries the pitch CV from the Arturia microbrute, and I plug this into the keyboard CV input slot of oscillator number 3. Then here, this gray cable carries the gate signal from the Arturia microbrute. And since the gate signal from the Arturia microbrute is not strong enough, I'm going to use the preamp here to boost it. So I plug it into the input slot. Then the range slider is moved to the upper position. This slider is all the way up to the top. And now I take the preamp output with a boosted gate signal from the Arturia microbrute and plug it here into the gate in. So now the next move is that we take the AR output and plug it into the ring modulator VCO number 2 input slot. We move this slider all the way up to the top, and then we take, let me get the right cable here, yeah, the pulse wave output of oscillator number 3, and we plug it into the ring modulator input slot VCO number 1. Both sliders are at the upper position, and this switch here is moved to the DC position. Now we take the output from the ring modulator here and plug it into the final mixer into the VCF input. So I move this slider roughly to the middle, and now when I press a key on the keyboard, you hear oscillator number 3. Let me play around with the pulse width. Okay, now the Arturia microbrute is sending the pitch and the gate to the Behringer 2600. Now when I play around with the AR envelope generator, you hear I increase the attack and the release. Okay, so the next thing is we want to make this sound a little bit more interesting and powerful, and for that we are going to use the pulse width modulation. So we take the LFO sine wave output and plug it here into the pulse width modulation input slot, and now okay, now this sound from oscillator number 3 sounds a bit more interesting. So now let's start to a sequence on oscillator number 2, which is also going through the filter, which is controlled by the ADSR and by the ADSR in the voltage controlled amplifier. And here in the final mixer, the output of the VCA is brought up to this position. So let's start. Bring up a little bit reverb. And now I start playing the second voice on the Arturia microbrute. play around with the envelope. And now I add an external delay. And an external reverb. Okay friends, before we finish, please drop a comment below and share your patch ideas. How do you like to use the AR independently from the ADSR? If you want more ideas on how to use the ring modulator, check out my tutorials where I combine it with a mod strip of the Arturia keystep. You might also want to check out my video where I put the original ARP 2600 and the Behringer 2600 side by side to compare how their gate and trigger signals actually behave. I have put the relevant video links in the description below. I really hope you got some value out of this tutorial. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Your support means a lot. And now I will leave you with some extra sounds from that 2-voice patch using the Behringer 2600 and the Arturia Microbrute. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again in my next video. Until then, take care, stay safe, and peace.